All right, we're live on Facebook.
It is Thursday, the 3rd of June, right?
Yep, June
Hey,
3.
hey, hey, everyone. How is everybody doing?
We made it to June.
We made it to June. We made it to June. Lots to discuss. Thanks for joining us. Um, uh, here we are,
As it is.
as it is. Sorry, I sometimes like need to wrap my head around what's going on and how it's been almost coming up on a year soon since the beginning of the war. It's been coming up on 7 months since the capitulation, and the on and on and on and on of all sorts of very, very, very tumultuous news items. I just want to kind of congratulate everyone for hanging in there. I know it's a lot. I know it's a lot for me. I know David and Richard, we always talk about how it's like, I actually was talking to my friend Laura the other day. I was like, hey, it's like every week, like we get traumatized, but then Richard, David, and I, we re-traumatize ourselves, like by because it's very, very tough being Armenian right now. And but we put together a show, and we want to kind of enlighten you with some news, some things you might have heard, some things you might not have heard, and we're gonna keep it going, man, because I think informing the audience, informing our friends, community is in it of itself a positive thing to do.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. And we're gonna have more guests. We got some great guests coming up this month as well, Greg. And so we're gonna keep bringing the news and bringing important conversations to everybody. So well said, man.
Yeah. And, I just want to say thanks for not only to everybody for watching us and supporting us very regularly, but to you both, David and Greg, for, just, your ongoing friendship. I echo what Greg was saying about this being just a super challenging time, not just as Armenians, but personally, because this grinds at you after a while.
It really
And
does. It does.
it's not our intent to re-traumatize people. It is really, if I can speak for us, it's to collate all this and try and put it into a digestible stream so we can try and process it. Because otherwise, what ends up happening is people begin to disconnect. So I'd like to think that we're doing a service to the diaspora and to also the Anglos and the Americans and the other people around the world who hopefully watch us. That hopefully they get something out of this and get some context of what we're experiencing, because I've said it before, we need allies in this too.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
important. So
Yeah, well said, Rich. Well said, guys.
um,
Yeah, uh, very disturbing news. And look, guys, we are gonna be able to expand and bring more than just bad news every week. It's been challenging, the news that's coming out of Armenia. We're gonna do our best, like you said, Rich, to present it in a digestible way. But I don't know, guys, like the first and main, or should we start with the main
well,
item,
I
or do
would
we want to go with
before we do, I would just say this. We've tonight's episode is going to be focused on a few main huge topics that really need to be discussed, and the big topics of the day. We'll get to those, but we've got a couple of articles out of Europe that are important. There's a little bit out of the U.S., and then there's some miscellaneous items before we get into the action items, and then sort of what's coming up next for Arach Media this month. But right now, yeah, David, I think the big thing is what's going on with the health minister and the huge and disturbing news that I just don't even know I still don't know how to process this. So,
yeah.
yeah.
So obviously, I mean, I guess I'll take a starting point. So obviously, I guess trigger warning, content warning for those that are out there. There's been a lot of, we as Armenians have been re-traumatized through a lot of war atrocities, to a lot of issues with POWs, mishandling of Armenians, belittling of Armenians abroad in Azerbaijan, traumatizing of Armenians in the diaspora. So these are a lot of very, very, very content triggering issues. But what we saw past this past week is something to do with our own domestic handling of the fallen soldiers, and that was the report that emerged of bodies of Armenian fallen soldiers, retrieved bodies, essentially being stacked in unrefrigerated. I'm sorry, this is gruesome.
It's very
unrefrigerated areas of a morgue or
the basement. The basement of a morgue, not organized at all, stacked on top of each other. Go ahead, Greg. Sorry.
In what seems to be like, I don't want to confirm it or not, but the term used amongst the populace is potato sacks. When this came out, my first reaction was, please let this be a political ploy. Please let this be yellow journalism marked against Nikol Pashinyan's government, because I cannot take this, because this is lowest of low. Regardless of, and we'll go into some little details of what it is. What we saw physically and the way that it emerged was videos of people coming into the morgue and seeing those first hands going through two different chambers. Again, this is
they broke in. They broke in on Monday. Angry relatives of soldiers forced their way into the various morgues to inventory the remains. And it's the Abovian morgue. Relatives found plastic bags filled with human remains dumped in a basement that was not refrigerated. Those photos and videos, by the way, began circulating on social media and causing an uproar. Sorry.
So I guess the first question is, and I suppose if I had read all of the articles, I would know some of this, but we know they're human remains. We know they're in a morgue. We are absolutely certain that they are soldiers' remains. We're absolutely certain that all of it is what we think it is.
That is because, so again, to finish my,
I'm trying to play devil's advocate here, right?
No, that's good. And again, look, the story is so grave that I can't even put an anecdote or a comparative anecdote into it, because this is the lowest of low. This is probably, those things that I want to be like, oh, I cannot unsee this. That's number one. Number two, I was hoping that this was a farce. This was some kind of a political ploy. But then immediately the next day, or less than 12 hours later, the Minister of Health comes out and apologizes for it.
Which, by the way, she denied it at first, and then she came on.
Exactly. So here is what we have. And I believe, David, you pulled that a link of what the United States says to do with.
Just to give us context, like just how improperly these were stored. I mean,
First of all, we're talking about human remains. Second of all, we're talking about bodies of human beings. Most importantly, we're talking about bodies of human beings that are, you don't even understand the conversations I had with my friends about this. This is the most demoralizing part of it is, I don't care if it's an anti-Pashinyan's land or if this is a pro whatever. It is the handling of the bodies of our heroes. It is the, and it's 6 months in. While this is happening, you're going, wait, it's June. This could have been a horrible story in January.
Exactly.
But this is an astronomical...
In November, Greg, it would have been horrible. During the war, it would have been horrible, right? Like to your point, aren't we what? We're pushing 7 months, are we not? December, January, February, March, April, May, June. June 9 will be 7 months since the capitulation, correct?
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
No, I just have to say something really quickly. This is endemic of, and I hate to say it this way, but it's the only way to say it. What I've experienced in the Armenian community, as much as I love and work for, and care about the Armenian nation, what I've experienced is a whole lot of, no, don't talk about that because we don't want our enemies to know there's anything wrong. And what that does is it puts a wall up between truth and being able to move through it and to understand each other and to move forward. And so while this protectionism may keep us alive, it doesn't help us move forward at all. And it certainly shunts a lot of discussion inside the diaspora in organizations. I've experienced it, at the political organization I was with. Same MO, which was don't talk about anything bad, don't expose anything wrong, because we don't want that to come back to bite us in the butt later. Well, this is the truth.
Yeah.
This is horrible, and we got to be able to talk about it.
Yeah, it really is. And look, in response, the authorities or the people running that morgue have been fired. That doesn't solve this.
No,
That doesn't
David,
that
no.
doesn't explain, well, it doesn't explain how anybody, any employee of any morgue anywhere could have the means to do this. I just don't understand it. But go ahead, Greg.
Yeah. So the thing is the level of cataclysmic normalization that this administration has been doing. By the way, Pashinyan's nowhere near this horrendous nightmare, but I'm not going to let him think that we think that he doesn't know.
Well, Greg, just to add to that, he did come out, according to Armenian report, right? He did come out and say, this is wrong, we will investigate. But like we've had conversations, and with your father as well, does he really care, or is he just trying to say whatever he can to just hold on to power for one more hour, right?
I will go with the latter. Rich, if you pull up the Facebook conversation that I posted, this is a conversation with the official of the morgue. You can mute it. I have a paraphrase that I've watched it. It's in Armenian, right? It's a CivilNet conversation. You know, I have my opinion of what I think CivilNet does, but it's not important. What I will say is this. You could just.
So the question is, this is an 8-minute video. What do you want me to do?
Just play it. Just play it. Just play it but mute it. So I will talk over it. So the guys just. So this is a CivilNet talking to the morgue official, explaining, "Hey, can you let us know what exactly happened here?" And essentially, one sec. What he says, what he paraphrases, is that there's issues with the refrigeration. Sorry, and we shouldn't have done this. We apologize. Apparently, there's an issue that he says of parents not wanting to pick up the bodies, and that they're in denial of their kids being deceased. That I completely do not believe in. By the way, this is the same official that no longer is with the morgue.
Got it, Greg. There's families do not believe or do not trust the forensic data that the authorities are sharing, right? Saying that this does match the DNA. The families had to provide DNA to try to match with the bodies.
Yeah.
And the families are denying or not, they don't trust the results that have come back from that. I don't blame them, especially after this. Sorry, go ahead, Greg.
Yeah. Appreciate that. Yeah, that's a good comment. They have well over 100 bodies, which is more horrible than what I saw in the video. I think in the video you see dozens of white sacks of bodies, and these are human beings we're talking about
that fought for.
And he says that the backlog of identification is exorbitant, as we have identified. Which, by the way, first time in my life of coverage. Through a morgue official, I finally find out at least how many bodies the Armenian government has identified, which is a staggering over 5,500 deceased. Okay, so he mentions that as a backdrop to how big the job is and how hard it is. That hence as a way to explain why it's taken them 6 months. Okay, so let's pause there. Disrespect upon disrespect upon disrespect upon disrespect on every level. Just what I've heard. It's normalizing, and it's I'm sorry. First of all, David, you pulled up the proper storage of human remains as is outlined in the United States government. Okay. Now I understand Armenia has a lack of resources, but I'm assuming with the amount of millions that have been donated left and right, allocating that as a respect to the boys that have given so much to our nation would be the least that you can do, okay? My understanding of what I see is just a lack of care, okay?
Exactly.
This is a body that we can't identify. So first of all, you can identify a body through dental DNA, okay? So you can't do that. You implore the necessary tools. You set the record straight by saying that the person that did the most by giving all he gave, which is his life, By the way, the average age of those people in those sacks is 18 to 20. Think on that. Okay?
It's horrible. Yeah, I mean, look, they're claiming that they have done the forensic evidence. So, and that they got it and they provided it to families. Families are not trusting it. I don't blame them. Look at how these bodies are stored, right? Right. And then regardless of, and they like you said, that they said they don't have the refrigeration capabilities. There was a truck, a refrigerated truck that was out of commission on May 28. But again, we are 7 months after the war. We don't know when all these bodies were collected, but it's still been many months since they were deceased and since this war has ended. So it's unacceptable, and there are no words. There are no words.
Well, I mean, I think let's take it from the outside in. I think families would have a lot more trust if they were given information regularly, if there was a culture of sharing information and clarity.
From this administration,
right? What was that?
From this administration.
Well, yes, yeah, but in general, but in this administration specifically, but in general, we don't even have a culture of clear communication and honesty. And I think that speaks to the paranoid roots that this culture has, legitimately so. But no reasonable parent is going to believe any of this unless they're getting like real information. And I break into the place too. If my son got killed or if he was missing in action for months, I would absolutely break in and find out, because if I wasn't getting information, right, of course I would do that. Right. And we would be more apt to believe them if the bodies were stored correctly, if there was at least some organization, if there were shelves, at least, for Christ's sake. Like if there was some sort of like reverence, some sort of like care taken. Like it's just bad on multiple levels, you know?
You're absolutely right, Rich. I just don't understand how anybody could have the ability to just stack these bodies like this. Like you said, no care, Greg and Rich. Like it's on. I don't understand.
Not to mention, to go into the gross detail, but this is gruesome, and we had videos. I don't know. I don't think we should be showing them. What happens to a body 6 months on?
Oh,
yeah, it's absolutely awful.
Not only that, like, so me and you here are trying to sit there, guesstimate how many POWs are there, how many missing in action. Well, here you go. There's at least 100 of those right there in this stated by the morgue official.
So they're saying 200 corpses and 400 body parts of dead soldiers, sorry, trigger warning, are currently kept at the Abovian morgue. And that's where authorities are actually tasked with identifying the deceased through DNA samples provided by families. Officials say that DNA samples taken from them match those of nearly 100 families of the missing soldiers. Okay, this is according to Azeri. Now, another thing, and this is an important quote, which lines up with how we feel about the current administration, right? Sorry, we're no longer, we're being very, very vocal about it now, right? But Sophia Hovsepian, who's an independent member of the parliament, outgoing parliament, by the way, because there's snap elections on June 20, she dismissed the authorities' response to this scandal, they're calling it a scandal, which she said highlights their impunity and lack of empathy for the families of the war dead. Her quote,
absolutely.
Instead of firing the 3 individuals, they should have sacked and prosecuted the health minister and the former health minister.
Absolutely.
Who he's actually the current chief of the Armenian government staff, by the way.
Absolutely.
She told this to Radio Free Europe, Armenian service. So that was her quote. And so, yeah, I mean, I agree with her. I mean, this is just it's uncalled for, and it's very sad.
I think we're like, do you feel like we're using very PC words like uncalled for and unacceptable?
Yeah,
there's incompetent. At this point, I want to say this is just pure evil.
Yeah.
Pure evil coming from our very own.
I don't, I don't know, and I don't know, Greg. I mean, there's part of me that genuinely believes that with you, but there's another part that really just wants to hold out a little hope that this is just you know, terrible breaches in protocol without any. I don't know.
Well,
I mean, I think that all of us are guilty at one time or another of doing things that we would not normally do because we're under fire, we're under pressure, we got a lot of things going on. We may say or do things or behave in ways that we may not be proud of later. But if this is your job to take care of the remains of the people who are protecting the, it just seems seems so far beyond the pale that I don't even know how to talk about it.
You're absolutely
think so. I don't
both,
think so.
both you guys have great points. Look, from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, I looked that up to try to get some context on, okay, what is the proper way to store the deceased? Obviously, we know this is not what they did. But look, even if they didn't have the means to put this in the morgue storage facilities, they needed to find a way to refrigerate the room. You can bring in external generator, you can bring in cooling. They say 37 degrees Fahrenheit is what it needs to be at. They needed to find a way to get the rooms to 37 degrees Fahrenheit. And by the way, not throw them all over, strewn over the place. They need to be on cots.
So why don't I think this is a good opportunity for us to show a couple pictures. If there's nothing graphic, there's nothing gruesome, there's no blood, nothing like that. It's just awful to think about the whole thing. So if you don't want to see this, please close your eyes, and I will tell you when we unshare the screen, okay? But this is worth looking at to know what it is that we're talking about if you haven't already seen it, because it's terrible, and it's what we're talking about. So the first article, of course, is an Asbarez article that shows some of the pictures. And we're talking about rooms that, are full of young men and, who I don't even know how to continue that.
Yeah, this is basement of a morgue. Thrown all over the place in the basement of a morgue.
Now, this may be a little bit more like it.
Well, that's how they're supposed to be stored, right? That's how they're supposed to be stored.
I don't want to show the video. I'm sorry.
So this video, I think that's one of the videos that was shared on social media that has really led to this outrage. All
right. We can.
Thankfully, the health minister, she apologizes and claims some responsibility.
Protesters demanding her resignation, but they're all interim, right? Anyway, go ahead, Rich. Sorry.
Right. To his credit, he wants to have an investigation.
No.
But I don't know that.
No.
What?
I'm sorry. I'm just gonna interrupt. No, that is not. That's how you. He's doing exactly what the Turks do by saying, hey man, let's come together and have a conversation. What you do is you fire the health minister immediately, right, and you start a criminal investigation.
Right. He hasn't done it. That's a good point.
That's what you do.
That's a good point.
And that'll show you. And in reality, what I have to say is this. The actual point here is maybe to demoralize the Armenian nation so much that no mother is going to want to send another boy to the army. How about that? Richard, we talked about tinfoil hat theories here, and then we've been correct. We've been correct at the end of the day. But what if the idea here is to make sure that things are so bad that nobody, I've had friends tell me that if this was my son, after this, I would not want a single one of my children, let alone myself, to go to the Armenian army. What if that?
Let me tell you something. If this was my child, I would slit everyone's throat and burn every building down to get to the what? Period. I didn't spend 20, 30 years of my life preparing a person to live out here only to have for sure. I could spend a whole hour on this alone, but I'm not going to.
Of course, yeah.
As a parent, a lot of things matter. Your rent, your mortgage, your bills, your car payment, your job, your whatever. But ultimately, the only thing that really, really matters is your children, your family. I mean, that these parents who have not gotten information, clear, clean, concise, honest, direct information out of this administration and its everybody in it, that they haven't burned the place to the ground is a miracle. It's a miracle. I don't know how they did it.
Yeah.
Because I would.
Yeah. So I totally understand, Rich, although I'm not a parent, but there are so many angles here. There are so many lows. We need to continue being outraged. And I mean, we'll keep you posted about what's happening regarding this horrendous, yet another failure to the Armenian nation by this administration. I don't know how much more we can take.
I don't either. It's just one thing after another. And our friend Ara, top fan, Ara, thanks so much for your support, Ara. He put up a good point on here that she apologized and said they're wrong. He's questioning that, but even in the worst dictatorship, you would have a resignation or firing of the incompetent individual. So
for sure.
So
for sure, absolutely. I'll close with this. We have lots more to cover, but I'm also starting to take offense with the level of outrage that's not coming out of the Armenian population. I've seen way more, and this is where people go like, "Oh, here you go, pointing fingers." I've seen way more said about other issues in the world than this by our very own. And all those, Susie and Johnny activists, you know exactly who you are.
Yeah, it's true, Greg.
I've seen way more outrage about other things that I'm not going to belittle because they're very important too, than this.
Well, but here's the thing, Greg. I think you're absolutely right, and I think you're spot on to call people out on it. The flip side of it, and I'm not trying to push back against you, but the reality is this is effing embarrassing on such a colossal scale, because like the three of us have been working at this every week, in some cases multiple times a week, broadcasting every day. We're pulling information every day. We're processing this stuff, and this is just three guys. There are people all throughout America, let alone the rest of the world, who are focused on the Armenian nation, and we are trying to get allies to be focused on it too. We're asking for help. We're asking people we have a call to action every week where we say, please pay attention to the senator, pay attention to this piece of legislation. Can you make a phone call? Can you do something? And then something like this happens, and it's like Clorox to the entire movement for us. It's like it undermines everything that we're doing because it is so legitimately avoidable and heinous. Right? It is so ridiculously heinous that it is embarrassing to my cellular structure, because it's like, now what do we do?
It highlights how poorly the nation is being run. It highlights that.
Right. On a big scale.
Yeah. And on a big scale. It's tragic. We have to keep our resolve. We have to keep pushing. And yeah, I mean,
and I've said this to you guys that the other thing that it brings up is that and this is the other problem with why you're probably, Greg, not going to get a whole lot of like vitriolic outrage out of the laptop community at the coffee shops, because what this does is this gives ammunition to the Azeris and the Turks to say to the rest of the international community, well, I mean, don't look at the way we're treating POWs. Don't look at the way that we're handling this. Look at what they're doing with their own people. That's the terrible part. And it undermines everything that everyone is trying to do. And it kills all of our energy.
I don't understand where even an inkling of support for this man comes within our society. I don't understand. Let's move on, guys.
For sure.
We will continue doing our homework, and we will continue talking about this for as long as we can, as the least we can do to honor the memory of those heroes that gave their all.
They are.
Right.
What we have left of Artsakh is because of them.
Yeah.
Whatever
All right. So the next topic of conversation is the border tensions, and it's even going back to your point, Greg. It is really hard to call them border tensions because they're not really border tensions. They are. It's an incursion into sovereign territory.
Exactly. It's intimidation, it's provocations, and it continues. What are we, 3 weeks into this now? And nothing's been done to stop it. They're fighting like having brawls amongst soldiers. I've never heard anything like this.
Because nobody wants to be guilty of firing the first shot.
No,
because if Armenia fires a shot, then what's going to happen is Azerbaijan is going to say, see, they're firing at us. They're just going to justify bringing in tanks.
Yeah,
Am I wrong?
You could say that. I mean, it's just, we know the Azeris already are spinning it as we're at fault. We're the ones crossing their territory when they're clearly in sovereign territory of Armenia, right? So, shall we... Rich, you actually found that the link about the brawl that took place. There's been a couple of these.
Here, let me open this up right now. Yeah, I mean there's been hand-to-hand combat.
Exactly. A soldier was injured recently in a brawl, another brawl. This is at least the second. 2 soldiers.
There's that. There's also the report. Yes, absolutely, and we can lump this together. There's this happening in Gegharkunik, which is by Lake Sevan. We're not going to pull out the map at this point. I think folks need to start educating themselves on the geographics of Armenia.
And then very close to Lake Sevan.
Yeah, and then there was a report of essentially what do you call it? Azeri soldiers in Syunik crossing the border and harassing an elderly. Yet again, okay, so like it's just a total lack of control over our own borders, which is, in my opinion, again, tinfoil hat conversation. You can, the Yerevan crowd might not be part of what I'm saying or understand it, but I think it's by design. It's to demoralize. It's a total collapse. Notice what, by the way, I'm picking up here and there what Aliyev is saying sometimes. Believe it or not, I listen to that psychopath as well. And he's been said 10 times already. Armenia does not need an army. Let Armenia disband its army, and Azerbaijan will provide will provide for the. You know what I mean? Like, we understand how asinine that is to even think about it. But I'll be honest with you, I don't think it's far-fetched. I think this is part of some sort of a psychotic agreement.
Yeah, it's I mean, apparently negotiations have resumed in Moscow between Armenia, Azerbaijan with Russian mediation over the continuing military standoff. They're calling military standoff. No, this is the Azeris incurring on Armenian territory. Armenian soldiers being told not to shoot at them. And now look. Maybe we don't have oil. What's that?
It's a shame we don't have oil. Because if there was oil, the UN would be there tomorrow. They would have been there last week.
Yeah, but, I mean, it's just I'm having trouble understanding how there's negotiations on a border that already exists, but apparently it doesn't exist.
The border between Azerbaijan and Armenia, in the area where Artsakh was,
right,
has never been demarcated.
There you go.
And that, notice all of a sudden, let's not go into the whole border thing. We can continue on. It's just it's mind-boggling that there's like a lack of understanding, which will lead us into the next thing that we want to follow up on, right, David? Borders, foreign affairs. What do you call it? Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So when we were on last week, and then we can get to POWs after this, but when we were on last week, we had just found out that the foreign minister, Arach Media, the acting foreign minister, he came in, I want to say November 18, when the prior foreign minister resigned after the war. I believe he was the only one to resign after the war, or one of few to resign.
The economy.
There you go. So he was one of few to resign after the war and capitulation November 9 agreement. But Arach Media stepped in November 18 as the acting foreign minister. He, on May 31st, so he resigned on, let's see here, I'm looking up the date. He resigned. Actually, it was on our episode, I believe. On May 27, he resigned. May 31st, he comes out and gives this was as of Monday, our Memorial Day, right? We're all on having barbecues. Foreign minister resigned, had a press conference and gave his reason for resigning. Here is what he said, and we can have a brief conversation about it, guys. And Greg, it alludes directly to what you were saying when we found out on May 27. He says, his decision to resign from his position stemmed from a belief that Armenia's diplomats, he was Armenia's diplomat, one of them, right, must not be put in a predicament to implement policies that would jeopardize Armenia's sovereignty and national security. I'll repeat that. Armenia's diplomats must not be put in a predicament to implement policies that would jeopardize Armenia's sovereignty and national security. When I read that, I was like, wow. Like you said, Greg, what does he know that we don't?
This again goes into this. I wish one day, instead of just them resigning and writing this, like, I was in a room, I heard something bad, so I had to resign. They need to start going a step further. By the way, this is already somebody I do not find any competence or any kind of, I had no respect for the man. Sorry, I'm going to say it. But the only respect now I have is that he had the wherewithal to resign. What I think we've discussed, what I think he's going to hear is giving back these key strategic parts of Armenia that'll render the entire country unmanageable without some kind of interlocking with Turkey and Azerbaijan, which equals to losing our sovereignty. Right. And that's what he's saying. Right. Coupled with the fact that Davajan is most likely about to say that Artsakh belongs to Azerbaijan, sealing that fate as well. You watch my words.
Greg, tell everybody what Davajan is.
Traitor.
Yeah,
that's what it means.
Referring to Pashinyan, which
and I have some serious choice war.
Yeah, he was called that in Paris. We'll get to that in a moment, but he was called that.
While all of this is happening, he's in Paris, apparently celebrating his birthday or whatever.
Well, he met with Macron, but anyway, we'll get to that.
But we'll get to that in a second.
Yeah, we'll get to that. The quote from Avazian: "The reason for my decision to resign was to make sure that there are never any suspicions that this ministry could take any sort of steps or agree to any sort of ideas or initiatives that goes against our statehood and national interests." I don't know how much more damaging a quote someone can have. Yes, it's politically worded. And by the way, whoever is appointed to his replacement very well could do these things that he actually drew a red line for himself that he was not going to be willing to do, right?
It's an interesting way of phrasing all that. And basically what he's saying is, yo, I'm going to bounce because I don't want you guys to throw me under the bus, because I'm going to throw them under the bus because they're doing something I don't want to be part of and I don't want to be accused of. So I'm out.
Exactly. And he doesn't want the ministry accused of it either. But then who's going to go in his place? And what are they going to do?
So it's interesting, Greg, you and I, we well, the three of us, but you brought up multiple times tonight about how the veneer about what a tinfoil hat is quickly evaporating. In other words, all the things that many people have said, oh, that's don't think that way. It's probably not that. That's a little too far fetched. All of that stuff is opening up. I mean, even when we were talking to Emil Gessen, a few weeks ago, it was to me, it was an enormous epiphany, because many of the things that we've been talking about where we don't have the intel and we're like, well, okay, 2 + 2 = 4. We know that. So how come they're saying that it's 3 or 6 or whatever? And, when we start to hear different reports from what's happening on the ground, a lot of the things that we've been triangulating make some sense. And this is part and parcel of that as well. As these people leave, like I said earlier this week, between the three of us, it's like rats jumping off a ship, man.
He's hemorrhaging. He's hemorrhaging officials.
Yet I feel he doesn't care, David. I have a feeling that he has
a
job.
Right.
He has a job to fulfill, and he's fulfilling it.
Yeah.
And I don't know what Macron. I'll be honest with you. His meeting with Macron does not make me any more happy or interested. Macron might come in here as a bad actor, personally, if you ask me, because he's Western, you know.
Of course.
To all of us Western Armenians, I don't trust anything that the Western governments do towards Armenia. They dangle the carrot of democracy, yet they saw the unraveling of a country. Okay.
Well, absolutely.
And now they're gonna want us to be lockstep intertwined with the people that perpetrated genocide against us, as a way to kind of usher in some kind of an anti-Russian narrative that they want to usher in. And this Davajan is going to actually be the arbiter and the lubricant that makes this all come together. You know what I mean?
He's gonna allow for it. Yep. No, well said, Greg. And I hope people understand that. Maybe we can recap that in future episodes too, so people have a better understanding of what you just explained, because it's well said. And succinct. This, yeah.
But as we get into the next topic about POWs, I just want to say that, what part of what we've been talking about, and Greg, I'm going to highlight some things that you said months ago during this, which is, if this was pre-planned, if there was agreements made, if they knew they were going to capitulate anyway, if this was sort of like designed anyway, why did almost 6,000 people have to die? Why? Yeah. And I'll tell you my thought on that, which is to legitimize the occupation.
Yeah.
In other words, well, we can't just sign off and give it to them, because they'll kill us. They will surround the parliament building and they will murder us, which they should anyway. That's just me talking. That's not Arach Media. But I would say that, to piggyback on something that you said, Greg, which is, why should these kids have to die? Why go through all that?
Right.
And then the only thing I can come up with is because they couldn't just sign off on it and say, well, we're gonna sell our back 40. We don't have the money to build the infrastructure in there anyway, and we're just not gonna do anything with it. So Pashinyan has said for years that that the whole region's a pain in the ass.
Right.
For him it is.
Right. We know he's on record. He's on record.
I mean, am I that far off base?
No, he's on record.
No, you're not.
Can anybody watching chime in and say something?
Well, Rich, he's on record saying that. He's on record saying Artsakh is a thorn in our side. He's used worse terminology, right? He has writings of that. And sure enough, we've almost lost all of it. And now we're in danger of losing parts of Armenia. It's very concerning. Things are pointing that could be. I really hope that it's not. Things are pointing in that direction. Go ahead. Sorry, guys.
Well, I'll just say this right now. I don't wish anybody harm. My higher self wants everyone to get along and to have, open communication and deep connectivity. But I'm gonna tell you right now, if this guy did what it looks like he did, and if the swords drinking president or leader of Artsakh was in league with him doing the same thing, God help them both, because many of us would not help them, and it's going to get ugly, and something gnarly should happen to them, because it is almost unspeakable to think about the kind of treachery that is. You know what I mean? Like to concoct this fight in order to give up territory when they just could have given it up, or just that's mind-blowing to me. But up until this point, everything that we've been reporting on has come true.
It's true. And Rich, the only thing I'll add to that is, Russia could have stepped in and put their base in and put their peacekeepers in way earlier too. But they waited to the last possible minute because of
Well, and we know
how much
why
he
they did
hates,
that. We know
right?
why
Because how
they
much
did
he
that.
hates Pashinyan, right? But
Yeah, we've
yeah,
talked about the Russia's. Russia doesn't owe us anything, and Russia
of
will
course
do
not. Of course
what
not.
Russia needs to do. But the point is this: that this Davajan had a plan, and this plan is playing out fully. That's what I'm seeing.
It dangerously appears that way. I hope not.
And there's one comment from Ara again. Thank you for always being our friend, our fan, and someone that keeps allowing us to have very, very critical questions and critical, ideas to discuss. Why there is no outrage in Yerevan
Yeah, it's true.
is really, really beyond me. Like, it's beyond me.
I don't know.
I don't
Are they
know.
limiting information? I don't know.
Well, good call. But we know enough people that we would have seen something physically on the ground through our own friends. But it's just like,
Yeah. Well, okay. So the next topic is about POWs, and we've got a very interesting. I find it very interesting timing of this, where they've staged the trial of Armenian POWs from the previous war. Am I correct?
No.
They're blaming them for torturing Azerbaijani captives during the Karabakh War in the 1990s. It's very strange. I don't know if
it's strange, but it doesn't. It's not that strange because they're doing is they're piggybacking on national sentiment that they've created. They've artificially created this national sentiment, and now they're validating it.
Right,
they're trying to.
Well said.
Here, I'll show you the pictures. Thanks for finding the links. It's insane.
Yeah.
Here we go. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. And then, of course, we're going to see more of this with other POWs that are captive. They're saying that they're holding the POWs, more than 200 of them, for war crimes, for harming Azeris, for things like that, which obviously is not true. So, the whole thing is a sham, and they're using it as political.
Yeah, it's just red meat for their base. That's all. I mean, you want to speak to this one?
Yeah, please. Which one?
Yeah, so I mean, this is the Armenian human rights defender. He immediately came out saying that this is just a gross violation of international law. Okay, and he's obviously defending them. And he went on to say that it's obvious that they are being held in such conditions in Azerbaijan illegally, and the prosecution or trial of any of these captives, their detention is a gross violation of the requirements of international humanitarian law, so including the Third Geneva Convention. But as we've said many times, Azeris don't care about any Geneva conventions or any international humanitarian law. They just do not care.
Yeah, I mean, I'll leave it at that. Let's move to the next item, because I'm tired of beating a dead horse with what's happening with
here we are.
Yeah, I mean, the only other thing is the Lebanese Armenian man that was taken prisoner has been hospitalized, and word on his condition is not really known. And his family fears for his health condition and his mental health after being captive. And they spoke from his daughter and mother spoke from Beirut about their last telephone conversation, and he was transferred from prison to a hospital. So it's just they visited the ICRC, the International Red Cross, visited him in February, and they facilitated sporadic communication between him and his family with exchange of letters and notes as well. So, it's obviously it's concerning that he's in the hospital. We don't really know his condition.
Right.
I can't imagine he's in the best of health right now.
Right. So, our next topic, and this is so it's I have to say that I think what has been going on, at the early part of this discussion, we were talking about the treatment of the bodies of these soldiers, and in that discussion, came up the idea that this was done to demoralize the nation and the diaspora. And I would also argue concurrently that there is so much information about some of these other topics to draw attention away from the elections, right? I think that we've read that Kocharyan is gaining ground, but I mean, I've been looking for a lot more information about it, and I just think that if I look at the balance point between what's available for POWs and some of these other emerging situations and what is about to unfold for the future, it's like I'm not getting a whole lot. You guys seeing that too?
Yeah, totally. I agree.
Yeah, I mean, the candidates, Kocharyan, Serge Sarkisian, they're making statements. They're talking big and strong. But yeah, I mean, it's not clear really what's going on. I mean, yeah. Go ahead, Greg.
Time out here. Sorry, yeah. I came back to it because I'm in a state of euphoria with everything that's going on. Let's level set.
Euphoria is a positive thing, Greg. So I think you meant something else, but it's okay. It's okay.
Or I'm in a state of daze and confusion.
Yes.
Let's do this. I don't want to hear from anybody about how bad Kocharyan was, because no matter what you've seen today cannot get any worse. Okay. And the man is literally the one name that echoes through the government hallways of both Baku and Ankara, and they don't like if he would ever gain the upper hand and win the election. So that is my candidate now. I will pray for some next future leader that's both gallant and democratic and law-abiding and this and that, but currently I am wholeheartedly for Robert Kocharyan. And I know a lot of people do not understand that, but I really, really want you to kind of question yourself when you're asking that question, given the nature of where we are. Number one, this man is wealthy, and he does not need to come out of retirement. Number two, he had the most egregious trial launched against him. So what my first statement was, he doesn't need to do this, okay? He could float off into the Caribbean and not worry about any of this, okay? But yes, he's coming out of retirement at the ripe age of almost 70 to try to kind of reassemble an army. And that's one of his political standpoints, is like, I am going to bring the defense system back to operation, okay? And that's important for me to hear as an Armenian. Because no, I'm not going to want Azerbaijan to be the guarantor of my safety. That's number one. Number two, he's done so much bad. He's done so much horrendous things that he was put in jail and there was an entire case against him. 1.5 years of chasing through courts, and they pinned nothing on him. Richard David, they pinned nothing on him. This is 100% Pashinyan's government already. He had full control of everything. They did not pin a single thing on Robert Kocharyan. Okay? So everything that we don't like about this man comes from our point of privilege. That we are not dead in satchels and sacks, that we are not rotting in a basement, that we want to have an idea of an Armenia that may or may not ever come to fruition. And in reality, we live in a very, very dangerous neighborhood. And our don't like this guy. Well, I love this guy now. Okay? So that's the level of where I'm at. And I feel that all of Armenians, and when you sit here in the Bay Area, which is where I sit, and go, oh, but blah, 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 democracy. We just lost 6,000 boys, okay? We need to reassemble. We need to kind of secure our borders first, okay? And we need to build an economy. And a lot of us need to go back to Armenia, by the way. Friends of mine are doing that now. Only then can we start thinking, because what we got today is insanity.
Yeah.
It's the
insanity, incompetence.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you at all.
Design, yeah.
I don't disagree with you at all. Yeah.
Rich, you found an interesting article that I think I was very pleasantly happy to understand, because you know what? The truth shall set you free. By the way, once Pashinyan is out, our tinfoil hats are going to leave completely. You're going to hear so much that you're going to be like,
are you talking about my Greek City Times article?
Yeah, well, yeah, the one with about the
DNA profile.
Yeah, that is
all right. So let's pivot to that real quickly, and I'll just spend 90 seconds on it because it's really pretty interesting. So I was looking around and I found a very interesting article. So let me just share this with you, and then a little bit. There is a disinformation campaign called the Turkish DNA Project, which is calling for the boycott of Ancestry.com. And Ancestry.com is run by members of the Mormon Church. It's part of what the LDS does, is it empowers its members to participate in the church. And one of the projects that they have is to connect families and do family trees. And in Ancestry.com, which is, of course, available on a global scale, they track everything and everyone, and you can look up your family history and see all sorts of stuff. Well, it just so happens that Ancestry.com has uncovered that many of these people who've considered themselves Turks are actually Turkified Greeks and Turkified Armenians. And of course, Turkey doesn't want anything to do with that. So what they're doing is calling for a boycott of Ancestry.com because many Pontian Greeks get their, they're finding out that the internal composition of their nation is compromised by non-Turkish DNA. Well, that's because they're not Turks. They're Turkified peoples. And even here it says, the Turkish DNA Project is a misinformation portal on Facebook and Twitter, and it's known for posting genetic graphs and charts without references or sources. And they expressed frustration with Ancestry.com, and they've called for all Turks to boycott this company. And what they say in this is really amazing. Ancestry DNA prioritizes to demonize the Turkish people and delegitimize their presence in Turkey rather than giving information about the genetic structure of the relevant population. So what they're saying essentially is this group of American and national citizens who are participating in the Mormon Church have a political agenda against them. So this is the gaslighting of their own people, but they're really projecting onto others. So in other words, some church members have a political agenda against Turkey, which is ridiculous. I know a lot of people in the LDS community, and they're wonderful people. Agree with the religion or not this discussion. But what they're doing is great work. And so I just love the fact that even this disinformation campaign is shaking its boots at the idea that there's something that they can't control that is going to uncover a genetic time bomb inside that fabricated nation. That's just my 2 cents. That's my
amazing. By the way, we're on the subject matter. Do you know that what the estimate, like conservative estimate, of how many people with Armenian DNAs or an Armenian ancestry currently live We talk about 60,000 Armenians in Istanbul, right? Probably another, 10 to 15,000. Vakfe being that one village next to Lebanon, fully Armenian, although it's all like senior citizens at this point. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about people that went into hiding, that did not escape, that stories of, hey, my grandmother is actually Armenian, right? And that number on the most conservative estimate is 25 million. Think about that.
Wow.
In today's
I think it's amazing. I'm having trouble finding the word to describe it, but it's kind of laughable actually to see that yet another area Turks are looking to spread disinformation and have false data and it's not just Armenian genocide denial. Now it's this.
Because this literally cuts at the core of who they are, who they believe themselves to be.
Exactly.
Which is they're plagiarists. They are plagiarists, they are pillagers, and they're settler colonial state.
Exactly.
Okay?
Exactly.
That's what they are.
Right.
There you go.
Well. So I don't know. There's so much. We are constantly finding interesting articles about interesting topics and trying to bring them to you. One thing I would like to talk about really quickly is when Pashinyan was in Paris and some of the backlash against him. If you guys are up for it, I think it's kind of great.
Yeah, we touched on it a moment ago. He was just recently in Paris. It was actually a working visit. He met with Macron. I guess it happened to be his birthday while he was there. Is that right?
David, who did he meet with?
President Macron.
I love it. David, you have a little French in you, don't you?
What's that?
You have a little French in you, don't you?
I do, and I took French. Yeah, yes, right. I do. So yes, Pashinyan was not met very well there. And understandably so, considering what we're seeing on the ground in Armenia. So
they threw tomatoes and eggs at his vehicle,
and calling him Davajan, right? Greg, how do you say it?
Yeah, Davajan.
Yeah, they're shouting Davajan. So
right,
there was a report also that he did meet with members of the diaspora. So I would imagine
they're, in my opinion, Davajans too. As a matter of fact, anybody that supports this man is a Davajan. If you are in the Bay Area and you support this man, you can. If you ever see me, I'm gonna call you a Davajan to your face. That's it.
All right.
We're at that stage in our lives.
This is an interesting article. I would suggest people read, especially if you want to talk about a non-Armenian, or at least that's what the pen name of this person is. Talks about this is a good article to educate your non-Armenian friends about what's going on and why so many of us are working so hard, in spite of the idea that President Biden has suggested that he called this the genocide. The flip side of it is there's more to that story. So this is also a terrific article to look at, because what this does is this sort of underpins the sort of relationship between these two and kind of what sort of the background. So it's worth reading. The good news is that there is an opportunity for sustainable development in Armenia, but this is something that I think the three of us should talk about really quickly. So
the UN and Armenian officials are working on this, and it could be $230 million in aid for Armenia, which I think is obviously much needed. It was Armenia and the United Nations met this week. This is a report from actually today, and they signed a sustainable development partnership agreement, which may yield 230 million for Armenia through various UN agencies. So it's defining all the efforts the UN institutions in Armenia for the next 5 years. That's what the document is defining, the efforts of the UN institutions. So
I guess I'm concerned about how that's supposed to play out when there's such. Well, so the reason I think this is an interesting thing to talk about is because most people with a lot of money who are willing to invest a lot into a country or a company would only do so if there is the idea of longevity, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you're not gonna. I mean, someone's stock price is relevant to how stable the company is. Well, if I look at Armenia's stock, with Turkey at its door, with Azerbaijan at its door, what's the incentive to do this unless there's already some sort of plan in place?
Well, look, what it is, and so this the UN resident coordinator for Armenia, Shambi Sharp, signed the agreement with Armenia's deputy prime minister. Okay. Sharp's quote was, "The partnership framework is a new important guideline for the already deep cooperation between Armenia and the UN. It's not deep enough after this war, in my opinion. I think we might all agree on that. Because where was the UN?
Not deep at all.
Where is the UN after the war right now? Now there's 230 million.
Whoa,
Great.
whoa. Where is the UN during the war?
Exactly. So to end his quote, this agreement, and to maybe it answers some of your questions, Rich, this agreement sets out the ambitious collective vision of all UN agencies in Armenia, which aims to improve people's well-being and opportunities, to promote green economic reforms, to strengthen an effective governance system, to promote gender equality without neglecting anyone." That was
they can. I'm down for all of that, but I think my first and brutal statement on this would be that we can only have green energy if we don't have blood red in the streets.
Exactly. Well said, man. And this 230 million, while it's great to go into all those areas, that 230 million, if I'm not mistaken, guys, could be very, very heavily used in humanitarian relief right now in Armenia and Artsakh.
Yeah. There's like, limbless, what do you call it, amputee soldiers, but sure, I'm going to be building green infrastructure. And you know what? The diaspora and a lot of the people that I speak to that are high up have a lot to do with this BS mentality, where it's like, I personally cannot be thinking about the brighter future until I put food in the mouth of the soldier that gave his all. Okay.
Exactly.
So
and the people that are struggling. Yes.
Not only, but this is part and parcel. Two more things on this topic. This is part and parcel to a lot of this internationalist BS I hear about. How it's gonna somehow probably play into this whole like unblocking this the trade routes within the region. Which, by the way, if Turkey and Azerbaijan want to trade, go through freaking Georgia. That's your colony anyways, right? Why do you need to bring Armenia to its knees? Because you want to dominate us. That's why you want to do it. And secondly, there's a couple of diasporan Armenians that work in the United Nations office that I really, really have some very, very choice words for. But that's for a different episode. So all of that, doesn't make me happy about anything the United Nations does unless it's first acknowledges the war crimes committed against us. So
100%, Greg. It seems a little bit out of context, or what's the word I'm looking for. It just seems like there's much more pressing issues right now that this 230 million could go towards. Not that these things that it's being said are going towards aren't important. It's just like you said, man, there's people that are really suffering right now as a result of this war.
That's right. That's right. You don't talk about painting the exterior when the interior is on fire.
100%.
Right. 100%. So we've got some action items, and then we're going to start to begin to close out today, I think, right?
Yeah.
David, you've got some last minute information about the United IO.
Yeah. So remember, guys, a few weeks back we had Alexan Gergosian and Nare Sagatelian. They were co-chairs of the United AIO. What that stands for is United IO, United Armenian Inter-Org. It's now more than 30 Armenian organizations that came together to put on this conference and forum where there's going to be 15 proposals presented, and there'll be discussions, powerful discussions about five focus areas for Armenia's to rebuild or to build Armenia, right? So health, security, business, PR and advocacy, innovation, education. Those are the 5 focus areas. I'm actually going to be speaking in the second panel in the morning, which is made up of people that were involved as organizing. I'll be speaking on behalf of HBU Young Professionals. And so I'm looking forward to that. It's going to be kind of a discussion about how the diaspora challenges we've had working together, what it's been like putting this conference together. And then that's going to lead into those 5 focus areas, and there'll be panel discussions around those areas. Dr. Nubar Afeyan is actually the keynote speaker. He's the founder and chairman of Moderna. Thank you, Moderna. I have the shot in me for COVID vaccine. So I'm looking forward to it. I hope both of you guys, not to put you on the spot on live air, but you guys have everyone has until 11:59 p.m. Pacific time to register for this conference. The deadline is tonight. So that's why I thought it was important to share it. And we'll see where it goes from here. Yeah.
The link is already up in the feed. So you'll be able to, check that out.
Anyone can message us or comment if you're interested in the link, in the code to register, and we'll send you the code. Just message us or put it in the feed.
Excellent. Yeah. And then we've got
Greg, go ahead. What's up?
No. I was just gonna put the nail in the coffin there, but it's okay. Well, this is gonna be in Los Angeles, right? This would have been.
No, it's virtual. It's virtual.
Yeah, but if it wasn't virtual, it'd be in Los Angeles.
Probably, but you guys, it starts at 7 a.m., which is not very convenient for Pacific time. But it's because it's global and it's all day.
Well, I mean, what I want to say about Los Angeles is with 30 seconds till the end of the quarter, I think the Los Angeles Lakers are out of the playoffs now.
Got it. You're breaking that live on air.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna say. I don't know why I'm smiling, but I'm a Dubs lover through and through.
Yeah, I might bring back my Hoops Talk Live soon, and I could talk about it. But right now, focused on Armenia.
But just wanted to segue into that. Sorry, late connection, but I don't know, maybe in 7 more years.
No, they'll retool. But yeah, it's tough. It's tough to repeat, and they have injuries, and Phoenix is prepared. But we're digressing. Rich, shall we rattle through real quick our action items? Really, I would say if you're gonna take the time to make a call about the Azeris being on Azeris advancing in Armenian territory. The ANCA has put out a great action alert. They make it super simple. You can send an email, you can make a call. The script is right there. Call your member of Congress and make this heard, because they all should be saying something about it, and right now no one is, and not enough is being said.
So it's one thing to ask. It's one thing to ask them to do something, and I think you're spot on, David. They do make it easy. The reason that we're asking you to do this is because the more pressure that we put on our elected officials, the more it'll be on their radar, and the more they will put pressure on these governments, specifically of Azerbaijan's government. And unless you want us to be talking about how the Azeris have taken Syunik, then you need to make a call. You need to make a phone call.
Right.
Or, I mean, at very minimum, do this.
Right.
They also have. Go ahead.
No. Go ahead.
They also make it easy to support the immediate release of the POWs.
Correct.
This is another article. This is another action item that we're going to put in our link. This is the Armenian Assembly that is doing this. So
they both have it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's only 55. There's only 55 co-sponsors still. I checked it as of today. 55 co-sponsors. It's up 11 from the prior high of 44. But out of 435 members of Congress, I'd like to think. I keep using that terminology. Actually, I'm going to say this. I'm going to criticize them. Greg, you'll be proud of me. There better be more than 55 members out of the 435 member House of Representatives that actually care about human beings being enslaved captive as POWs for 7 months. there better be more than 55. It's so sad we have political divide in our House of Representatives that literally politics are preventing them from signing on to a POW. Call your representative. I don't care, Republican, Democrat, call them, have them sign on to these and send the emails. Sorry, I'll get off my soapbox.
Okay, so this is we're back to Armenian National Committee, who has also a pressure campaign on the POW issue. That Correct. Link is up as well. Also, they also have a pressure campaign for 907, which is the release of money to Azerbaijan. That essentially the U.S. tax dollars are bankrolling the aggression against the Armenians. And so if you as an American want to stop that, the way that you can do that is to put pressure through telling them not to waive 907. So this is the way you do that. And again, all these links are here. You can also go to the Armenian Assembly page, and you can get more information from them. And also the anca.org is a great way of getting more information as well. And furthermore, we have our own link tree, which has all of these links and more up there. So, probably the thing to do would be to get on that, or to
get on the link tree. Get on the link tree, click, take action. Exactly.
Right. Do you want to talk about our upcoming episodes?
Yeah, let's plug them real quick. We got some great guests coming up. We have a couple weeks off of guests, but we have our friend Greg and Rich. You'll meet her, Larissa Hovhannisyan, founder of Teach for Armenia. She's going to join us, perhaps live from Armenia. It'll be early morning for her. We may have a recorded interview, perhaps, but working on a live interview with her next Thursday, and then June 17, journalist Tatu Hakopian will be joining us. He was on the front lines during the war, has a book that he has out called The Valley of Death, the 44-day war in Artsakh. So we'll be speaking to him about his book and about his experiences on the front lines. Greg, I know you're looking forward to that too, right?
Absolutely. It's going to be, that's the point of this project that we do here, is we want to make sure that we bring pertinent individuals, leaders, and have the necessary conversations. As a matter of fact, people that I agree and disagree with. If Mr. Prime Minister, if you want to come on Arach Media, I'm more than happy to host you. I will have a civilized conversation about everything that has transpired as well. So thank you all for listening. Thank you all for being with us. I look forward to talking to you next Thursday. And Rich and David, it's always been a pleasure.
Likewise, man.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Thanks, everyone. And remember to get onto our YouTube channel. You can see back episodes that way, so you don't have to be on Facebook to do it. Again, we are building out some stuff to go live on multiple channels at once. So it's not enough just to watch us. We really appreciate it, but we need you to subscribe. We need you to keep the your notifications going to know when we're going to be going live, which is typically on Thursdays, 9 p.m. Pacific time. Beyond that, we would really like you to just tell your friends, because what we want is more people to know about what's going on, because just like we're trying to help the community, we hope you are too. So
exactly. We'll say.
Thanks.
We'll say. Share. Good night, guys.
All right, everyone. Good night.